Welcome to the Penga Folder podcast with your host, Nana and Emily. They invest remotely in the UK and live in Sweden. In this podcast, they will be interviewing interesting guests that all invest in the UK property market.
Hi, Paul. How is it?
I'm good. How is sunny Sweden?
It's good. So today it's really funny because you said you're a Tottenham Hotspur and I'm an Arsenal fan.
Well, you can't help it. Can you see that?
Yeah, there? I saw
it. Look, here we go. Look, I've got a picture of the best striker in the world, Harry Kane.
Oh yeah, of course.
If I would have known you were an Arsenal fan, I wouldn't have agreed to do this podcast. You do know that, don't you?
Yeah, I know. That's why it was good that I said it after you came.
Yeah, good call. I'm trapped now. I'm trapped.
So tell the listeners, who is Paul?
Who is Paul? So I am, believe it or not, I'm 50 this year. I feel really old. So I've been helping landlords and letting agents for 30 years. I left school with no qualifications and I started working in a firm of lawyers, firm of solicitors. And I remember my starting salary, believe it or not, was £4,000 a year. That's how old I am. Okay. So I started working in a lawyer's, like doing practical stuff, doing litigation and debt recovery, all that stuff. And I worked in the UK, there was a big recession in 88, 90. And I was doing house repossessions, going to court, and I was doing all these different things. And then I worked for a couple of law firms, learned my trade by working in a couple of law firms in London. And then I wanted to work for myself. I was always very entrepreneurial. And I started a legal company, but I became a private investigator and a bailiff. So I was doing all these weird, but I was always helping landlords get their properties back. I was doing surveillances, husband and wife marital affairs, criminals. All the, my daily work pattern was always different. I had different work every day. And then I met my old business partner, who I started Landlord Action with in 2000, and he wanted to evict 25 illegal immigrants in a 3-bed flat in North London. And I did it for him. And I did it for him for fixed fees, but working with a firm of solicitors. And out of that, we started our business Landlord Action. And in 2003, that's when the big buy-to-let boom started in the UK. So more and more landlords came into the marketplace. And then I built the business up and I built a brand up. And then as I was saying to you, I did my first TV program in 2001 in the UK, all to do with buy-to-let and investment, stuff like that. So I've done quite a lot of TV, do a lot of radio, and I do a lot of public speaking. I train landlords and letting agents as well. And I do a lot of advisory work with the government on buy-to-let and the private rental sector. And then just on the TV aspect, in 2015, so almost 5.5 years ago, I got contacted by a production company called Bright Sparks, and because they'd seen me do other TV programs. I've done quite a lot of TV, but 1 or 2 episodes, but just real life stuff about landlords and stuff like that. And they said, will you appear in a program called Nightmare Tenants, Slum, Landlords? And I liked the way it was made. It was quite challenging because I was running a business at the time. So time was hard. And now it's been a big hit in the UK, and I know around the world because I get a lot of emails and I've had fans from Sweden actually email me and stuff. So they sold the rights, and it's been a big hit. And I filmed the 6th series just before lockdown. So they've just launched it in the UK, but I know it's already been shown in Holland and various different countries. But yeah, that's basically the sort of, and then just to finish off the story, 3 years ago, I sold Landlord Action to an insurance company who my friend owned the insurance company, brokers, and we own lots of brands within the private rental sector. So like when you get a deposit, you have to put the deposit in the deposit scheme here. I don't know what they do in Sweden, which is called My Deposits. And that company bought my company. So I wanted to do other things. And now I'm on the board of the company. So we're based in just north of northwest London. And we've got 220 staff, and we own about 10 brands, of which one of those brands is a brand called Landlord Action.
Wow.
That's the story.
What a like journey you have done then, Paul. That's amazing.
And I became a landlord after I set up Landlord Action.
No, so let's jump right to it. I put you on here because I know your expertise in tenant removal and all of this, and we all have seen you in the show. And when people tell me, yeah, are you investing in UK? Oh, how dare you? I've seen this show with Paul. So let's get straight to it, and you can give us the right answers that the listeners need to know how to do it. So if you would like to remove a tenant, how should you do it the correct way?
Well, let me tell you now, as of the 1st of March, when we're recording this, in the UK, in the courts in the UK, the eviction ban, so to carry out an eviction, is on hold until the 31st of March. The courts were on hold or suspended from March till September 2020. It's been an absolute nightmare for landlords. So because of COVID in the UK, and I'm sure it was around the world, they changed lots of laws because they didn't want a whole load of people being made homeless, and there's a housing shortage. They slowed up the procedure. So now to serve an eviction notice on a tenant, it's 6 months in the UK. Well, actually in the UK. And also, once you go, if the tenant does not leave and they're not paying, then it can take you another 6 to 8 months to evict the tenant. So you could have a tenant, worst case scenario, owes you 12 months rent arrears. And, in the UK, we've got, they say there could be about 2.5 million landlords, of which maybe 80-90% of those landlords only have 1 or 2 properties. And they're the ones that are really struggling. So in our business, we started a mediation business. So we try and mediate with the tenants to do deals for them to leave sooner rather than later. But it's really, really tough times for landlords. If you've got a tenant that doesn't want to pay the rent or won't leave, then it's hard to remove them. But, most tenants are really good. It's the small minority. And I always say to landlords, a good tenant doesn't turn into a bad tenant overnight. You need to, I think with what happened with COVID, we've seen landlords and tenants really come together and speak and try and do deals and help each other. More so than I've ever known it.
Yeah, that's good. So what is Section 21?
So Section 21, and I'm involved in some work with the government. Section 21 was a 2-month notice. So if you wanted to sell your property and I was your tenant, you could serve a 2-month notice when the tenancy was coming to an end. Normally they're 12 months, 6 or 12 months. And then you could ask to remove me, but you didn't need to give a reason. What's happened is a lot of the tenant groups now have said abolish Section 21 because it's non-fault. But most of the landlords were serving it because of rent arrears. But what will happen is Section 21 has now been moved to 6 months. So now it's been diluted. And most people will serve a Section 21 if there's rent arrears, but they should be now using a Section 8 rent arrears notice. They want to sell the property and move back in the property, or a tenant wants to be rehoused, they stay put because they want to go to the council. And we have a real, I don't know what it's like in Sweden, we have a real social housing crisis in the UK. That's why more benefit tenants are now renting through private landlords. But of course, tenants want security. They want to stay in a property as long as possible. So they are removing Section 21. It will be banned in 12 to 18 months' time.
Okay. So let's say before it get banned, what rights do you as a landlord have?
Well, look, if you want... what will happen is you'll see a lot of landlords exit the marketplace. You'll see a lot of landlords that have been landlords for a long time. I mean, in the UK, obviously, we've had furloughing. So the government have been supporting people so they don't lose their jobs up until April. They've extended the stamp duty. So the market in the UK has been really, really buoyant. It's really weird because we are technically going into a double-dip recession, but the government have been supporting businesses. I mean, in the UK, we're up to about 290 to 295 billion pounds worth of government support for individuals, for companies. So it's in the unknown. But because stamp duty, they gave a concession for any properties up to £500,000. You don't have to pay stamp duty or tax. So so now the market has been quite buoyant. But what's happened is mortgage lenders have been much more stringent. So some of the deals have not been, they've been pulled out for various different reasons. So they've extended stamp duty to the end of June. The abolishment of stamp duty concession for up to £500,000 to the end of June to keep it going. So it's a really weird. I've worked in recessions all my life, and this is really weird because you've got a really buoyant housing market and prices are really high. But, there's real parts of the economy that are struggling and will struggle once the government support stops. The commercial property market, and I call this really early on. I do lots of webinars and podcasts like this. And I think in the second week of lockdown, the first lockdown in first week of April, I said the commercial property market in the UK will be decimated, and it has. It's been because people are working from home. And then you've got companies refusing to pay commercial rents and you can't enforce them, So commercial property has been really more worstly affected than residential.
Yeah. Okay, that leads me into my following question. What is Section 8 then?
The Section 8 is when there is a breach of tenancy. So at the moment, there's 17 grounds to evict a tenant. And when they get rid of Section 21, which is happening, I know for a fact it's happening, they have to strengthen the Section 8 grounds. So, the most common ground is non-payment of rent. But again, that Section 8 notice is 6 months. It used to be 14 days. Oof. So can you imagine? So when there's 2 months rent arrears owing, that's a mandatory ground. It means you go to court and the judge has to grant a possession order, but you've got to wait 6 months rent arrears. So that's why we started the mediation business, to try and do deals with tenants and get the property back sooner rather than later. But, I've never known a situation where a landlord who could be owed 4 months rent arrears has said, oh, I want there to be 6 months rent arrears. I can't wait there to be 6 months rent arrears, because the notice period goes down to 4 weeks from 6 months. But we have seen an increase of instructions, and we do maybe 1,500 cases a year. A lot.
Wow.
I've got a whole team of lawyers, and it's long. It takes longer and longer now, and it's really, really hard for landlords. We've seen an increase now of antisocial behaviour instructions, because let's say I have a tenant, they're drug dealing or there's fighting, or you can serve a notice, pardon me, and you don't have to give a notice period. So technically, the next day you could issue court proceedings. So a lot of landlords are going down that route, but you have to persuade the judge because it's up to the judge's discretion. So it's challenging times. I think the default rate, I've seen it various different figures. I think worse, it's about 5%. I've heard 7% or whatever, but 5%. But you will see landlords that are owed rent, a record amount of rent now, because it takes longer. And it's really hard to collect money against an ex-tenant. Yeah.
So are there any loopholes that we as landlords can take advantage of this Section 8 that you...
Well, look, I think there's a bigger picture. So if obviously, people that are watching this, they have properties in the UK, they have to make sure they have a really good letting agent fully managing the property. That reports to them about their property, that collects their rent, that is fully compliant. And, that's what you have to have. A good letting agent is worth their weight in gold. With regard to Section 8, I mean, there's no magic wand at the moment. Really, any landlord that's got 1 or 2 properties, you still have to think that this is a business. You have to put a price on your time. And, if I'm in Sweden, and I've got property in London, I can't manage my property. It's impossible. I mean, there's over 160, 170 rules and regulations in renting out your property.
Oh, wow.
Believe it or not. I know in Sweden, it's really heavily regulated. I know that because I've actually got a client that's got properties in Sweden, whatever. It's not as heavy, but we are following suit here. And, we've got 4.5 million properties that are rented out with about 8-9 million tenants. The type of tenant has changed now as well. And the average time before COVID, a tenant was living in a property was about 4 years, believe it or not. And I say to my landlords, and we've got a really good website which I'll give out to you now, which is a free resource site called landlordzone.co.uk. Landlordzone.co.uk. It's one of our websites. It's a breaking news website for landlords. So if anyone's listening, go onto that, subscribe for free, and you get news bulletins. But there's no real fast track magic wand when it comes to Section 8 now. You need to be proactive. So if your tenant owes you 2-3 months rent, and you can do a deal with them to leave in 28 days, and you write off the rent arrears, well, that's good business because you save yourself a year, historically, a landlord that uses a letting agent, and you have to reference your letting agent because there's some good agents and there's some crap agents out there, dare I say it. And some landlords, that's what forces landlords into going self-management. But, all letting agents in the next year and a half are going to be regulated in the UK as well. And we've got about 25,000 letting agents.
Yeah, that's good that everything is getting regulated. So during COVID now, that's the way to do it, that struck a deal with the tenant because you're not allowed to kick them out. That's how you're doing it right now, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you've got to do a deal. The problem you've got, and we're now in third lockdown in the UK, and they've now done a roadmap when we're going to come out. When did you come out of lockdown, or when?
We have not had any lockdown, but they're talking about getting one soon if the people don't behave. But I think it's just talk. They won't do any lockdown.
Wow! So you haven't had a lockdown? No. At all?
Just restriction, like you're not allowed to go to the cinema, or you're just allowed to be in the restaurant to 8 o'clock in the evening.
Well, I mean, yeah. So you've kept the economy going, which was the best thing to do. I know. And now we with the vaccine, we got it out really quick here. We've had 16 million vaccines that have gone out. I think it was one of the highest. It's the highest in Europe, I think, and then our highest, second highest in the world, I think, by all accounts. But I think what has happened is we've seen landlords get a disease called landlord rage, and they end up throwing the tenants out themselves. I mean, I speak to police officers, and they're getting called on lots of landlord and tenant disturbances where landlords are just throwing them out, because they're getting desperate. So yeah, you've got to do deals with tenants. You've got to realise, I think referencing is going to be much more stringent. And I think also landlords, my bit of advice to landlords is you can get a rental insurance to cover you. So if your tenant loses their job, they stop paying, your rent guarantee is paid every month. And there's policies out there paying up to 15 months.
Wow.
And paying for legal fees. And it will cost you £200-300. It's worth doing. You need that peace of mind. I mean, we do work for insurance companies.
But like you mentioned, so let's say if you have a problem with a tenant, should you call the police, or is it a special?
No, they won't. The police won't do anything. It's a civil matter. So we do have scenarios where there's squatters. So if you break into a residential property, it's a criminal act. I mean, I've got a picture here. One of which is there. That's a picture of me going to Downing Street. I did a campaign in 2012 to make it a criminal act that any squatters that broke into a residential property, it's a criminal act. So the 1st of September 2012, it became a criminal. You can see I haven't grown in height. I didn't have any grey hair there. And that is number 10. Someone said I should have at the time served a notice of eviction on David Cameron. I didn't.
He would love that.
Oh, yeah. I would have done it for free. I mean, actually, I'll tell you something funny, actually. In America, the program's quite popular as well. And I was getting these people there was people sending pictures of me at the White House gates saying, "Oh, I need to evict President Trump." It was quite funny, actually. And then I was doing some banter, and then a couple of Trump supporters were giving me a bit of stick. I thought, oh my god, I'm going to stay away from politics.
Yeah, that's best.
Stay away from politics and children or something,
Okay, so let's say, so you're saying they will not remove Section 8, but the Section 21, they will remove it.
They will definitely remove it. I mean, they had under the Renters Reform consultation, they had 20,000 replies back to people. I mean, I said all along, they brought in, they've brought in a lot of things for landlords, and the tax implications, more legislation, the evictions, the court slowing down. But but prior to COVID, which hit everyone sideways, there was a consultation about housing courts, and I was on that, and I went, met with the Ministry of Justice, and then there was a consultation about the banning of Section 21, and there's a report that we helped commission, a 70-page report called Beyond Section 21. And basically the findings are you have to invest heavily in the court system because there'll be more hearings if they get rid of Section 21. So you need more bailiffs, you need more judges, you need to reform the bailiff system. You need to also do mediation, which is important. It's really important. So, that you need to put some implementations in place before banning Section 21. But it is going to go. Yeah. It is definitely going to go.
Okay. Then I have another question regarding, as a landlord, are you allowed to say no to pets?
Right, so that's a really good question. So recently, and you'll get on Landlord Zone, we just put an article up literally last week, okay? The government have brought out a tenancy called a model tenancy, okay? And in that model tenancy, it allows pets, okay? It's not mandatory at the moment. So as a landlord, depending on the property you've got, you could say, I don't want pets, okay? My thought on it is, it depends what your property is. If you've got a block, it may be in the head freehold that you can't have pets, okay? Actually, if you rent a property out to a tenant with a pet, they could stay longer and you could get better rent. Now, there's only, I represent an organisation called My Deposits, which is one of the deposit schemes, mydeposits.co.uk. The law is you can only take 5 weeks deposits. You can't take extra pet deposit. You can get pet insurance, which is important, But, I've got a dog. If I was renting, I'd be gutted if I couldn't have my dog. But I know plenty of landlords that will take pets, and ideally want them to have a garden and stuff. So at the moment, it's not mandatory in the UK, but it's the government are suggesting it, I personally am in favour of it, but it's horses.
Oh,
excuse the pun.
Okay. So what responsibility for the property if you use a letting agent as a landlord?
So you've got to be compliant. So generally what will happen is if you find a letting agent, let me give you some top tips, right? Finding a letting agent first, there's a really good website called allagents.co.uk. It's a review site from landlords and tenants about the agent to see if they're any good. So, and then you've got to, don't go with the cheapest agent, because my experience is cheap is always expensive. And what you also need to do is make sure they belong to a redress scheme. So, as I said, I represent lots of companies. We are owners of the Property Redress Scheme, and there's a company called the Property Ombudsman. They have to belong to one of those two companies so that you've got redress. And really, really, really important, they have to have client money protection insurance in place. And we own our third scheme is called Client Money Protect. So if I was your agent and I was renting your property and I went into liquidation or end up doing a runner and going to the Bahamas and nicking all the landlord's rents, the insurance will pay you out. It's a bit like ABTA, or ATOL. When you book a holiday, you get... So that's really good. And I was campaigning for that for years. That came into law a couple of years ago in the UK. And then, of course, you need to find out what do they do for their full management service, and then, of course, they will make sure your property is compliant and look after your property. How do they communicate? I mean, 25% of the complaints we get at the Property Redress Scheme about letting agents is poor communication, there's in the UK, I mean, we've got, as members, we've got over 15,000 letting agents that are members of our scheme. Amazing, so, but there is more regulation coming in and more, they have to pass a lot of education to qualify. But yeah, an agent should be protecting you, should make sure that your property is fully legally compliant, and they should be paying you the rent and collecting your rent. And really, you have no contact with the tenant. They do it all for you.
What rights does the tenant have then?
Well, the tenant's got a tenancy agreement, and in that tenancy agreement, it gives them rights of peace of enjoyment. Okay, so it means that, you know, I think the mindset is, as a landlord, as us landlords, we want tenants to feel that the property is their home, because if they're home, they're going to stay in it longer. You know, we want them to look after it. You know, we want our agents to be able to get access so they can do checks, do inventories and midterm checks to make sure they're looking after the property. But a tenant should be able to enjoy the property without a landlord interfering and harassing them. Okay, I have a motto. As a landlord, no news is good news. Okay, yeah. So if you're getting your rent and the tenant's not calling you up saying that this is wrong or that's wrong, then you should be happy. I mean, there is 5 things that keep a landlord awake at night. You know, 1 is not getting the rent. 2 is funding maintenance issues. You know, it's costing a lot of money. 3, having the property empty, a void period. 4, the taxation, which is Section 24. You know, they've abolished interest mortgage relief, and now they're talking about capital gains being increased. So it's harder now for landlords on taxation, depending on how much they've leveraged up to the property. And also now landlords are complaining about more regulation. You know, and if you are a self-managed landlord, what I would recommend is to join the biggest landlord association out there called the National Residential Landlords Association, which is nrla.org.uk, and you pay £70 a year, and you have an advice line, you get all the legal updates, all the documents, and it's worth doing, definitely.
So, is there any organization or insurance a landlord should consider? And I know you mentioned one before, but maybe you have some more.
Yeah. Well, look. What we do is we do landlord insurance. So we cover up to £25,000 of malicious damage insurance. We get a lot of cannabis factories happening all the time. Believe it or not, I mean, they do. And they trash the properties and you don't have insurance. Flood, fire, you know, tenants stealing stuff. So you have to have landlord insurance. You can get it as little as £100. So if you go to a website called Total Landlord Insurance, totallandlordinsurance.co.uk, it's one of the companies I represent. We insure 17,000 properties. And we have our own claims department here. And we're actually partners with the National Residential Landlord Association. You've got to think your property is one of your biggest assets. Why wouldn't you want to protect it? It's important.
Yeah, that's true. So is there any more responsibility the landlord have that you can think of?
No, I mean, look, you look, buy-to-let is long-term. It's not short-term. Rents have held up pretty strong in the UK. You know, London, they've dipped a little bit. You know, people coming into the marketplace now, they're happy on trying to yield at 5%. You know, I know people that yield at 12%, you know, depending on how long you've been a landlord for. You know, you've really got to realise interest rates are they're nothing. So landlords are very lucky. And when I speak to a landlord, you know, because I've been in the game a long time, I remember when the interest rates used to be in 1989, 15%. 15%.
Wow.
You know, people. And I used to go to courts when I worked as a solicitor doing mortgage repossessions, you know, so they were really high. But people forget that. So borrowing money is really cheap. But now the criteria is getting tougher. You know, yes, there is 95%, 90%, you know, mortgages, but generally they're 75% loan to value. You know, but there are products, they change with time, and we also have a mortgage broker. So we sell everything.
You have everything.
We have, and that's why I sold my business to Hamilton Fraser, because I now have an overview. I'm a chief commercial officer, so I review the sales, and I know what landlords want. So we have a mortgage brokers, which is called totallandlordmortgages.co.uk. So we started a mortgage brokers on the 1st of September, right in the heart of lockdown, because we've got most probably on our books with all our brands, we've got about 500,000 landlords on our books, and they all need the same thing. So, and so we offer them that, and we got 20,000 letting agents on all our brands as well. So it's a natural progression for us to offer the landlord, products, and they know that we can offer them everything really, and we're a trusted brand.
Yeah. So can the court stop you from evicting someone?
Well, at the moment they can, because the courts are on hold until the 31st of March. It changed twice, 3 times. I've got some really, I've done loads of TV interviews relating to some of these case studies on the news. I've got one landlord, she's owed over 2 years rent arrears. I've got a landlord who's owed 15 months rent arrears. He's homeless. And there's this perception that all landlords are millionaires. It's so far from the truth. And of course, a lot of tenant organisations that, they think landlords are parasites or pariahs, and it's so wrong. And I campaign for landlords. I did a debate last Wednesday, one of the biggest landlord property shows. It's online, called the Landlord Investment Show. And I did a debate called Stick or Twist, and we had a debate and whatever. And I just think that landlords need a little bit of love, but they don't, no one's really, politically, everything changed 3-4 years ago in the UK. It is about generation rent. It is about, can these people get on their home, on the ladder? And most landlords are decent people. If anything, some of them are naive. Some of them try to cut costs, and they should have a letting agent that fully manages rather than self-manages. And I've even done I filmed it a couple of weeks ago, a course which will be on sale, which will be self-managed or not to self-manage. And I do a presentation with a letting agent and 2 landlords, and we debate. So, because landlords just don't put a price on their time. Most landlords, they have full-time jobs. So, I would say to you, let's say, even if, say, you were living in the UK, landlords are still trying to self-manage when they live 50, 60, 70 miles away. It makes no sense. Would you want, I'm going to ask you a question now. Would you want to get a call from a tenant that's drunk at 4 a.m. that they've lost their keys? Yes or no?
No.
Good answer. Would you want to take a call from your tenant that the boiler's broken and you've got to go around and fix it? Okay. Makes sense. So use a letting agent, but it's important. And I don't think people value their time as much. They think they're going to save money, but then they spend £60 on petrol and they waste 4 hours. Makes no sense.
So I have a following question. As a remote investor, what should we think of if we want to remove a tenant when we go back to the after COVID, not now during COVID, let's say before, pre-COVID, or?
Well, look, hopefully, yeah, no, I get that. It's not going to go back to the same. It's going to be, there's so many different procedures that have been brought in now to slow things up. Hopefully, firstly, you'll never have to evict a tenant, because no landlord wants to evict a tenant. It's a last resort, okay? Secondly, you should try and mediate if you can, but tenants change their mind. And third, naturally, you'd call me up. You'd call Landlord Action up. We'd help you, of course. Landlordaction.co.uk. It's all fixed fees, and we're a regulated firm of solicitors. But you know what? You've got to realise that, if heaven forbid, you do have to evict a tenant to get your property back, to try and get some income again, or maybe sell it or put another tenant in. You'll make mistakes, yeah? Everyone makes mistakes in their property journey, and you've got to learn by them. But you've got to realise that now it could take 12 months to get your property back. So, I've got an idea. Do you get any questions that come in from these podcasts?
Yes.
You do. Okay. So what we're going to do, it's a bit out of date. It's out of date because I did it 2 years ago. So I did a book. It's 2019. So if you tell me the best question, that comes in, I'll send a book to the winner.
Okay. You hear that, listeners?
Because I'm known as I am the landlord's friend, but it's not easy being a landlord, and I think referencing is going to be much more stringent than ever before. I think landlords are going to have to look. Landlords will get getting guarantors to have someone that's liable for the rent if a tenant doesn't pay the rent. I think that's going to happen more, and really, I think as landlords also you have to business plan. If you're looking at scaling up, You know, you're looking at investments. You've got to look at legislation. It's slower now to evict tenants, you know, and it's hard. But I think also there's going to be a lot of landlords that are going to exit and maybe sell properties with tenants in situ. And I think that I think the last quarter of 2021, I mean, I think you'll see the market move more. You know, I think there'll be, you know, I think prices will come down. I think it has to be inevitable. It's been amazing how they held up, really. But I think there will be opportunities. But don't, you know, think about yield. Think about what areas. I mean, at the moment, you can get good yield in Liverpool, in Bradford, you know, in the northwest, you know, not so much capital appreciation. I mean, you know, but, you know, trying to get capital appreciation and yield in London is tough.
Yeah.
Everything's expensive. I mean, you know, I think the average property in buy-to-let property in London was something like £540,000.
Wow.
A lot of money. Yeah. A lot of money. The average rent in London is £1,600 a month.
Yeah. That's not like the rest of UK.
Not like the rest of the UK. But one thing is for definite, it's cheaper to buy a pint in London than what it is in Stockholm.
That's true. So could you give us some tips that you think as a landlord we should be aware of?
Yeah, I think...
Your best tips.
Best tips, top tips. Okay. So, yeah, like I said, put a price on your time. Treat this as a business. Don't get emotionally involved, okay? Make sure you have really good supply, especially if you're overseas and armchair. So you do need lawyer. I mean, look, we're like emergency plumbers. You don't ever want to call us, but you know we're there, you know. Make sure that, you know, if you're a landlord, join the National Residential Landlords Association. That's a good tip. Make sure you have insurance. Like I told you, total landlord insurance is really important. Have a really good letting agent. I know I keep going on about it, but I can't stress it enough. Do your diligence and have a strategy, you know, have a business strategy. Work out that, you know, you can get business, get some financial planning, get some financial advice, you know, with regard to lending, what the lending criteria, and, you know, how long do you want to be a landlord for? You know, what areas, you know, sometimes, you know, if a deal looks too good to be true, it normally is, you know. So, and I think there are some good property education courses out there. Be very cautious because there's a lot of them that would charge a lot of money, you know. But it's important to understand where the market is, what you foresee, you know, and look at sub-markets. You know, is it a university? You know, what is going to be increased is going to be the need for more social housing. So doing deals directly with the council, you know, doing 3-year council deals where the council is your tenant rather than the tenant, you know, who's on universal credit. We have universal credit here, which is 6 benefits paid into one. And believe it or not, there's 6 million people now claiming universal credit. 6 million. But I say to everyone now, it's not just tenants struggling, it's landlords as well. You know, landlords have jobs and whatever. So, but you know, there's been that politically, the problem we've got in the UK, there's landlords and tenants, it's them and us. And actually that's part of the problem, you know. You know, it is part of the problem because there's some great tenants out there, some tenants that care, there's some great landlords out there. But I just think that landlords are just tarnished, especially at the moment, with the last couple of years, really, with a bad name, you know, like, you know, money grabbing so-and-sos. And they're not really like that. Most landlords do care about their tenants. You know, even if I rent a property out in Spain, I've got a place near Marbella. I've had my same tenant for 5 years. I haven't put the rent up once, you know. He looks after it, you know, and I care about him. He's an elderly guy, 71 years old. I text him, we have WhatsApp, we see what's going, you know. I think what happened with regard to COVID, I think brought humanity it brought it back a bit. And I set up a section on Landlord Zone called Landlord Hero. And I got pelters on Twitter for setting it up. Oh, landlords aren't heroes, this, that, whatever. I mean, I had one landlord, she had a commercial unit. She was giving free rent for 3 months. You know, I had landlords that were giving key workers free rent, free properties, doing weekly thing. But good landlord news doesn't sell. It's normally evil landlord news. So it's a shame, but, you know, without the private rental sector in the UK, which stands at 22%, the government will be buggered here, you know, because we've had a dwindling housing stock of council properties for years. So the private rental sector is really important.
Yeah. Yeah, good tips. So I have one following question, and then I have the fun part that I call.
Okay.
So if you have unlimited funds, who would you have as a mentor?
Who would I have had as a mentor? That's a really good question. Who would I have as a mentor? I quite like him for his no nonsense. There's two actually. They're very well esteemed, self-made businessmen here. One is a guy called Lord Sugar, Alan Sugar. He's on a program called The Apprentice, and he made it from nothing. He's also got property. And there's another a guy that's on a program called Dragon's Den, called Fear Prophetus. He owns retail shops, and he's quite a fun character. So yeah, I think most probably I'd have, if I was going to have some business people, really, I think most probably that it would be those two.
Okay, so now to books. What one book would you recommend to your child or children? It doesn't have to be property.
That's a really Mice and Men, I think. Mice and Men.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one book every property or every investor should read. It doesn't need to be property.
Besides my book, The Landlord's Friend. What book? I mean, I think a lot of people have read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Okay. I think that just changes the mindset. I've met him, actually, Robert Kazak. I met him a few times. But I think that is quite a good book. It just changes people. Because, look, people get into property because they want financial freedom. You know, people just want to, you know. And I think also with COVID and people are working from home and this, people's mindset have changed and stuff. And people have been forced to go into different industries. I think I'm being a bit boring, really. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think it just changes a bit of mindset and focus. I think, you know what, people got to realise you can only get into property if you have money. The problem we have is there are property networking clubs, and there's people that sell property education. I call them property education gurus, and I've been quite critical of them over the years. To be a millionaire for £1, in 2 years and all that. A lot of it's just bullshit. I'm sorry to say. You still need some money, even if you joint venture. But I think it's important, if you are getting into property, is to get in with the right partner. The right person. But there's so much information on the internet.
Overload.
But yeah, you can overload, but just take your time. Take your time. It's really important. It's a big deal, and it's a long-term plan.
Yeah.
And
what about the property book besides yours, obviously?
A property book. Yeah, I mean, I've read a few. Simon's got quite a good book. Simon Zutzi, called Property Magic. His is about property sourcing and investment and stuff like that. That's quite a good book. Yeah, I'd say that. There's a lot of books out there. It depends what you're looking at and what type of style. I think there will be a lot of opportunity as well in development, for permitted development, because you'll see a lot of the smaller towns in the UK where the high street is closing down, obviously, for various different reasons. So you'll see a lot of development. You've got to realise we're an island, and we have a housing shortage. So the developers, here, and of course, they just bought out 95% mortgages for first-time buyers up to 600,000. You have Help to Buy, you have shared ownership. So the developers, generally, are just, the big developers in the UK are smashing it.
Okay, last question, then I'm done.
Well, you got so many last
yeah,
questions.
I know. But because you went into this about the future, etc., what do you predict will happen with the property market going forward after COVID?
I think that the market in the UK is overpriced, especially in the south and the southeast. I think that the job situation and the economy will be in its true state in quarter 3, quarter 4. I think that's inevitable. There's record debt around the world. The money has to be paid back in the UK. So taxes are going to go up. Inflation's going to go up. Interest rates are going to go up. That's inevitable. I think that it will create opportunity. You know, you'll get a lot of keen sellers as well. But don't forget, the market's just gone up and up and up. You know, it's gone up. It's gone up something like 6% the last year or something ridiculous like that with nationwide. So I think that I think once the market, I think the economy and the market, I think quarter 3, quarter 4 this year, and then going into 2022. I think you'll see prices come down a bit. I think it's inevitable. You won't see a crash. There's no way you won't see a crash. Market's strong, demand strong. But you'll see. I think you've got to look at the economy. You've got to look at unemployment. You know, and that's going to be an indicator. I don't know what it's like there, but I think unemployment is a 5-year high now in the UK. I think it's 1.9 million or something, if I remember rightly, something like that. So I think that I think prices will correct.
Okay.
I don't think there'll be.
Okay. So thank you, Paul, for doing this. How can people get in touch with you? Name all of your sites, not maybe 40 of them, but some of them.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. So look, you can follow me on social media. Okay. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn at Paul Shamplina. Landlord Action is landlordaction.co.uk. The company that owns Landlord Action is Hamilton Fraser, FRASER.co.uk. And we own and mydeposits.co.uk is deposit. But also go on to, I told about Total Landlord Insurance, Total Landlord Insurance.co.uk. But more importantly, at all these websites, a resource site, because this podcast is a resource program. Go to landlordzone.co.uk. I do webinars. I do lots of engagement pieces. I do training, landlord training as well. So landlordzone.co.uk. Just subscribe for that website so you get all the breaking news of landlords in London, in UK. Sorry. And if anyone wants to email me personally, I will get back to them, which is paul@landlordaction.co.uk.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And I'll put everything down in the show notes, listeners, so you can go to all of those sites and contact Paul. This has been a pleasure.
And is the series out in Sweden? The 6th series?
No, I haven't seen. I've seen like season 1. They haven't.
Oh, you've only seen season 1?
Yeah, I have a daughter, but I'm looking at you sometimes.
Hold on, you have a daughter. She might think, oh, I'm going to love watching Nightmare Tenants, Slum Landlords. And you could binge watch series 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, they did sell it on Netflix actually, but it's So yeah, I think I don't know when they are selling the new series abroad in Sweden, but yeah, I'm up to series 6 now. And normally it's about 8-9 months filming. It's a lot of filming as well as running a business and being on a
but usually they show it either during the day or in the night. That's the bad thing about it. But I think it's because it's a foreign program. If it was like in Sweden,
what channel is it on in Sweden?
I think it's on channel 11. So it's not a popular channel. Like,
oh, well, that makes me feel better. Thank you. It's not a popular channel. No one watches it. But yeah, on that ending note, you make me feel $1 million. There's 5 people that watched it last week.
No, it's a lot.
No, it's been fun.
It's been fun. Thank you very much, Paul. So,
good luck. Keep safe, everyone.
Don't be stressed. Invest. Bye.
Don't be stressed. Invest. And I hope Spurs stuff Arsenal in 2 weeks' time.